My dear viewers, beginning today is the official Alliteration Gaming Patreon and channel members. Throughout my Patreon, we've got quite a few tiers you can check out in order to gain special perks and even commission videos that you'd like to see me upload onto the channel. Every tier includes a shout out on my supporter card at the beginning of all of my videos, along with the benefits of the tier itself. Following that, you can now also join the Alliteration Nation by becoming a channel member on the YouTube side of things. Pledging your subscription here as a member of the channel is going to grant you the same shout out on my supporter card as all the Patreon tiers do, as well as access to the members only channel on my Discord. You'll gain a member badge that will level up as you stay subscribed and access to my exclusive emotes when I stream on YouTube. If you're interested in checking out the Patreon, I'm going to have the link in the description and in the pinned comment down below, as well as the link to my Discord should you want to join that as well. And if you want to become a channel member, the big, beautiful join button is front and center on my homepage right here. And if you do decide to support the channel in any way whatsoever, know that I am unimaginably grateful, and I can't wait to provide you with even more top-notch content at my trademark top speed. Additionally, it's time for the return of the referral code. If you're new here and you're just getting into the game, you've got to make an account on the Universe's gaming network. When you're signing up, you can use my exclusive referral code Alliteration to let Jasco know that I brought you on board, which directly supports me and my work. Having an account on the UGN site is going to allow you to sign up for tournaments, participate in events, locate stores that support the game near you, and much, much more. Playing in events and or mailing in pack wrappers is actually going to accrue loyalty points onto your account, which you'll then be able to redeem for exclusive promo cards in the mail for absolutely free. An account on here is an integral part of playing this game, so make sure you sign up and you use my code Alliteration to help me continue doing what I love. I would really appreciate the support. You guys absolutely killed it on the last one with all of the signups, and I am really excited to run it back with you all. Now, let's get on to the video. Welcome my dear viewers to another Alliteration gaming video. My name's Levi, and today we're going to be doing a deck profile on one of my favorite new decks in set 4 to play, Mr. Compress from the League of Villains on the air symbol. Now, I've been an air symbol, air charge, that whole package, you know, meteor shower stand for a very long time now. Pretty much ever since Kirishima 1 got out of the picture, I've been playing, you know, the Ochakos of the world. I've been playing Chaos decks with the same packages. Just in general, I love to play me some charge attacks, and I love to mess around on my momentum. It's one of my favorite design spaces, and it's one of my favorite ways to play cards in this game. So when Mr. Compress got revealed, not only is one of my favorite characters from the series with this ability set that lets me play my momentum like a second hand, I knew that I was going to full send on this guy. Mr. Compress is a 6 hand size character with 27 health, and he's got the air, evil, and void symbols. His response says that after you block, you get to just commit and send your block right to momentum. This is of course very awesome, simply because it clears your progressive difficulty while you're defending, and at the same time gets you a free momentum, and it's something that you get to go in and grab for later, because we have a form that lets us trade 1 health to reveal a momentum and play it as long as we haven't played that card already this turn. These two abilities are really freaking sweet and interact amazingly together. Being able to block with your foundations and then build them on the next turn so that you don't lose them in case they're really nice tech pieces or just staple parts of your board, amazing. Being able to block with your attacks and then keep them later on is really fantastic and lets us play really well with certain numbers of certain cards, and in general lets us get incredibly techy when it comes to a deck like this. On top of that, your cards that have face-up momentum abilities are going to be immediately online, which is another really powerful part of this guy's play style. The ability to just play cards out of our momentum non-stop is really fantastic. It basically means that we're never going to brick. We're always going to have attacks when we need them, especially in tandem with a lot of the other things that we're doing inside of this air symbol charge deck. So without further ado, let's move Mr. Compress aside here and talk about some of the really cool attacks that we get to block with and shove into our momentum. The first is of course going to be 4 copies of Zero Gravity Lift. Gravity Lift is one of our best attacks in the deck. It's a throw, so that means it's going to be guaranteed damage. It's going to guarantee go into momentum, and then we get to just pay 1 health and play this every single turn. Gravity Lift is just one of the things about this deck that really lets you put decks on a clock, especially certain 7-handers that basically say, hey, your tax for playing the game with me is losing 3 health every turn, and not every deck is prepared to deal with that. If your rival's not packing things like Villains Defeated or spooky plays or just momentum removal or momentum denial, this is just a really pressuring card. And when we're finally ready to go for the kill, this is just going to let us clear our progressive difficulty like crazy and enable really awesome plays with our meteor showers. Next up on the list is a card that interacts very similarly, and that's 4 copies of Electric Jolt. This is the exact same logic as Gravity Lift. We get to play this, it'll guarantee damage, it'll guarantee momentum, and then we just get to replay it it every single turn. Not to mention, we get to play this, hit with it, flip it during our rival's turn, commit their best thing, and then on our next turn, we get to just pay 1 health, reveal it, and play it, and rinse and repeat that cycle. Just as Gravity Lift says you have to pay 3 health a turn to play the game with me, Jolt says you have to play a game with me with your best foundation committed every single turn cycle. That's insanely powerful. It's also worth noting that we get to, if we do hold Jolts in our hand, maybe we just didn't want to play them and overextend, we get to hold these, block with them, snap them in, and then say, hey, if you want to attack me again, your best thing is getting committed. Really, really, really annoying card. The EX will also win you games sometimes. It stuns 1. This thing is just fantastic. So Jolt is just a 4-of staple in all 3 of its symbols forever. Next up, we have the biggest workhorse of the deck and the true engine in itself, and that's 4 copies of Meteor Shower. Meteor Shower is the cornerstone of the air charge package. What Texas Smash is to punches, Meteor is to air and chaos charges. This card's just so good. This card, so like Mr. Compress, he already represents inevitability, right? Every attack that you get hit with is going to stockpile, and eventually I'm just going to have this like 10 attack turn with all of my momentum stocked up because I'm not a real 6-hander anymore. Meteor Shower lets you extend that even more, being able to take things that double up inside of your momentum, turn them into extra Meteor Showers that you then get to play, lets you make sure that you're getting the most value out of every single momentum piece. You know, you might have like 2 Jolts in there at some point. You're going to be able to turn the extra one that you can't play again into a Meteor Shower. When you have your Gravelous momentum, you can basically replay your meteors like crazy. 1 meteor, even with no others in discard pile, can represent like 2 attacks with a Grav Lift. It can represent even more if you've got plays. Like, it's just really what makes everything run so smoothly together. Meteor Shower is a fantastic part about this deck. Again, it's all about that inevitability, and of course, being able to block with a Meteor Shower, commit, compress, and then eat it, and just say, hey, these are waiting to start the show next turn is really good. One of the main downsides of Meteor is that if you don't find one late game at an opportune time, if you're not able to just hold on to that singular one to start the chain with the others in the discard pile, you know, you have to block with it, you lose it forever. That is not a downside in Mr. Compress. Now we're going to start talking about some of our finishers, and the first card that we're going to look at is a pair of 1.3 million volts. 1.3 is insane. This is just like one of the freest kill cards in the game. It's just a free 3 low for 1 million. If you have 2 of them, it's super duper disgusting. It's got a beautiful low block that we can block, add it to our momentum, and then just say, hey, you got to hold a low block for the rest of the game now, or this thing is just going to come and kill you out of nowhere, sitting on my momentum, waiting for you to mess up. We only play 2 copies because it's not something that we really want to see early on, just because that we can't really make it threatening. Like, we don't really have a way to put speed on it. Unless we can really catch our rival in a bad position, it's not something that we really want to see super duper early. If we do see it early, it's great to block with and then put it into our momentum for later on. But for the most part, this is going to be like your late game kill card, so you can really get away with playing 2, especially with some of the other things that happen in the deck. You got a little bit of a tease in the opener, but charged up is a massive part of this deck, and it just says that we get to go fish for these out of our discard pile when we really want to go for that kill. So 2 is perfectly fine. Next up, our other 2 of kill card is going to be a pair of Home Run Comet. Home Run Comet is really good. It's sometimes a little anti-synergistic because we are looking to mostly play Meteor Shower strings, and we're going to be mostly playing our momentum, but Home Run just says that we get to convert any excess momentum if we don't have Meteor Showers, or if a bunch of meteors just aren't going to do the trick, we need one big powerful swing. Home Run just lets you turn all your momentum into, again, a very free kill. It also lets you set up like committed foundations into your momentum, then you can like compress, form, and play them, so it kind of lets you reset things sometimes, stuff that you flip, and just in general has a lot of really good interactions. Also, again, a really good block mod to say that if we do find it early, we can very easily block with it and then sneak it into our momentum for later on. Next up, we're going to start checking out some of our 1-ofs. I do like to play a few weird 1-ofs in this deck, cards that are kind of situationally good, that are really just there to be great charged up fodder. And the first is going to be a singular Airstream Driver. So the 1 of Airstream Driver is really just to kind of like catch your rival off guard. If they aren't going to die to a Home Run Comet and they're holding that low block for the 1.3, if you can get them to block something early on in the string, this is just your big high attack bomb. It caps out at 9 damage, so it's not always 1.3 or Home Run Comet good, but it is just a really nice sneaky attack. And if you do just have something on their board that you really need to deal with, like something that might stop your Jolt or your Gravless, like a Wall Cling or a Spooky or a Villain's Defeated, it's really good to just have that on-demand seal. Just having access to that is great, and it is once again a nice low block for blocking with and then keeping away for later, which is again going to play some really serious mind games with your rival. Our next 1 of that we're going to talk about is a singular Double Jab Pummel. Double Jab Pummel is fantastic in Compress because normally you just take this attack so they don't get to filter, but if you take it in Compress, it goes to momentum and then you have to deal with it again next turn. So most of the time when you play this move, you're going to get that filter off because they don't really want you to go to momentum with it. So generally, you don't really want want to see this early game. As great as it is, it's a one of because you don't want to see it early game, because Mr. Compress, despite being an air charge deck, he's not really one that looks to like ape you out on turn 2. He doesn't really try to get those super duper fast kills. He prefers to set up a little more and play a bit more of a mid to late game. So seeing double jab early on, most of the time, it's just going to be a matter of you would play it, it gets blocked, you draw 2, discard 2, and then you probably don't really want to attack very much more from there. It is still incredibly useful though, so it's a great one of, and again, if you do draw it early, fantastic one high block. Our last one of that we're going to look at is a singular instant explosive release. This card is fantastic as a one of. Essentially what you're going to do with this card is the second that you check it at any point in time in the game, you're going to throw a jolt or a grav lift, you're going to hit with it, you're going to charge up this into your momentum, and then you're going to play this right away, and then it's going to go back in, and it's just going to do that every single turn because you're going to play your jolt or grav lift back from your momentum, and you're pretty much just trapping your rival in prison, saying that, hey, you have to deal with all of these cards every single turn because I'm just playing them for free and they'll always go back into my momentum. It's also fantastic on the meteor shower turns because you basically get to go form, play your jolt or your lift from momentum, it hits, form, play this from momentum, it'll return, and then you play a meteor shower, and then you take this in your momentum, turn it into a meteor shower because you can't play it again anymore. It's very, very, very good, and of course is fantastic fuel for things like Home Run Comet too. So that's all the attacks in the deck. It is 19 attacks in a 63 card deck, so it's pretty much about on the average. Compress is a character that, like, for the most part, the only moves that you really want to see before you're like ready to start going in on them is just grav lifts and jolts. You kind of just want to pepper them with grav lifts and jolts. If they leave themselves open to, like, you can make sure a meteor hits, you send it in. Otherwise, you pretty much want to hold everything else to block with and just stockpile into your momentum to get ready for your kill turn. Now, before we get onto foundations, let's talk about our blue and green cards, because we do, first of all, run for Season the Advantage in this deck. Season the Advantage is still a totally ludicrous card. The biggest weakness of this deck is things that interact with our jolts and grav lifts to stop like our looping game plan. So having this card to just like target flip villains defeated, target flip spooky, target flip wall cling, basically anything that's just going to give us a hard time is great. The 2-speed is nice if we actually like want to go into like a 1.3 or a home run. We can make it a little bit more pressuring, a little more difficult to block. But for the most part, this is just going to be your way to interact with your rival's board as an aggro deck, and that's just extremely powerful. After that, we're going to be rocking a pair of Earphone Jacks. This card's just very good. Everything that we've got is a charge except for instant explosive release, so +1 speed to all our moves is fantastic. It's got a really, really nice block. In case you have to hold it as your high block, you can block with it, eat it, and then build it in later, which is really nice. We can play like a lot of tech pieces because of that type of interaction. And also the fact that you're going to almost definitely play a jolt or a grav lift every single turn, you're getting this ability off every single turn, so it's just always raiding a foundation. Honestly, I would love to play a third, but it's just I like to keep the deck a little bit slim because when you don't find jolt or grav lift by like your first attack turn, the deck feels really, really, really slow. When you can't get that guaranteed momentum, you have to be a real 6-hand size character for quite a while, and that does not feel great. Now moving on to our foundations, let's start with our only 3 diff in the deck, and that's 2 copies of Scouting the Forest. For a long time, this was rescue completed, but I really felt like with Specialist of Sound and Release already in the deck, you didn't need that much blocking power because Mr. Compress just doesn't really like get enough cards. He really doesn't get enough cards to really block that much. You're blocking like 2-3 things a turn max, and so I didn't feel like Rescue Completed was pulling in a ton of work. Scouting the Forest, meanwhile, is one of the only deadlocks that we have access to, which this is a pretty fast deck, so that's not usually an issue. But the main thing is that it's a nice low block as well. We're pretty starved for lows in this deck. I think we only got like 16 in here, but the response is very, very nice. If you're having trouble finding that jolt or that grav lift, you get to just go and dig for it and try and get your things rolling. Alternatively, when you do have your jolts and grav lifts, this is guaranteed. They're guaranteed damage, so you have a guarantee activation of this, and it's really nice for finding things like that meteor to start your string off, or you know, your 1-ofs or your 2-of bombs. It just kind of helps you go through your deck really fast, which is what this deck really wants to do. And of course, the rest of the cards get discarded, meaning more ammunition for charged up. Now we've talked about it so much at this point, let's finally show off the king of the deck itself, and that's 4 copies of Charged Up. When I first saw Compress, this is the first interaction I thought of, and it is basically everything I want it to be. It's pretty much build your own specialized sound waves. It's fantastic. It was always okay in Ochako because you get to go target, pick up anything in your discard pile. This just does the same thing, right? You get to just grab anything in, immediately form it, and it's fantastic. You want to see as many of these across the game as possible because they're going to pick up all of your awesome 1-ofs, they're going to pick up your bombs here and there, or they're just going to grab whatever you need to start off your big strings, right? Snapping in like grav lifts with this is insane. Snapping in jolts is just, every attack is a fantastic target. target, and not just because you get to play your cards from your momentum. It's just great. It's like the best foundation in the deck, and it's really, really what you're going to be looking for to kick things off, and to, like, it's what makes your decision tree so crazy. Having like a hand of like a couple attacks, forming in like a Jolt or a Grav Lift, hitting with it, and then you have like 2 charged up on board and most of your deck is in your discard pile. It's the ultimate, like, how do I put things together? How do I build this kill string now with this on-demand access to everything going on in my yard? It's very, very, very good. Next up, we got our best defensive piece, and that's, of course, 4 copies of Specialist of Sound. It's Specialist of Sound, guys. It is like the most free, repeatable -3 speed in the game. It's a pretty much 4-of staple on all 3 of its symbols. It's the best way to just keep yourself alive. It's a low block. The incidental check response is really, really good at setting things up, especially with Destined for Mainstream Success in your deck. Next up, we're playing 4 copies of the card that shuts down our entire deck, and it's 4 Wall Clings. Again, this is just another fantastic piece of defense that our symbols have access to. Being able to stop your rivals' throws, your rivals' jolts, all that kind of stuff is really, really great. Denying the momentum is fantastic. Making sure that your block zones stay good is fantastic. Obviously, you know, this is one of the reasons why I get to get away with only 16 low blocks in our deck. Most of the time, these are like an extra 4 once they hit our board. And another thing is, most of the time when you're blocking with this deck, you have a really specific attack that you want to block with. So like, say you really want to get your like low block or your high block into your momentum, being able to block their mid attacks with those, and then not, you know, taking the downsides of half blocking, but still getting your guaranteed, your desired momentum, I should say, is really, really, really nice. And our last 2 difficulty inside of the deck is 3 copies of Wealthy Aspirations. Wealthy Aspirations is very, very good in this deck. It's not quite charged up good because the momentum is random, but at the end of the day, we can always pay a health, reveal it, and then figure out what it is, figure out if it's something that we want to play at some point. It's really good. The Enhance, being able to let us reuse things like Electric Jolt, is also very, very good. That has saved my bacon a numerous amount of times, and of course it's got a very, very attractive low block as well. Moving into our spams, we have one of the best in the entire game, and that's 4 copies of Destined for Mainstream Success. This card's too good. Again, just another like hard 4-of staple on its symbols most of the time. It's a great spam, it's a great block, and the ability to just call attack every time. You can either pick up an attack or guarantee that you're checking a 5 when you want to decide if you want to embark on some greedy lines is very, very good. And of course, when you get to see the top on a Specialist of Sound check and have this on board, it is just a free card. Destined for Mainstream Success is just too good. Next up is 4 copies of Arrogant Disposition. Now, for a card that only targets a specific archetype, 4 might seem a little excessive. For the most part, really, I'm playing it because it's a 2 low and it checks a 6. It being an incident Specialist of Sound against punch decks is cool, but for the most part, that's where the real value of this card is. If you truly want, these could and maybe even should just be 4 copies of Happy Go Lucky, especially to guarantee that you have low blocks in a not very, very plentiful low block deck. Could be very, very strong. I like the block modifier and the check a little bit better, but it's certainly something that you could try out. And our last 1 diff in the deck is just a pair of Cool and Tufts. It should be pretty apparent why this card is in here. Our momentum is our entire lifeline in this deck. Losing it really, really sucks, so this just helps us protect it. Honestly, for most decks, I think removing your foundation just to put your momentum back in hand is a pretty excessive cost. If this was like a flip or something, I would love this card a lot more and probably 4x it, but this effect is a little more valuable in something like Mr. Compress because the momentum is so much more valuable to us, and if they take something that we really, really want in there for the next turn, we get to just pick it up, block with it, and then put it right back in, which is quite nice. Going into our 0 diffs, we are of course the air symbol, so we get some of the most cracked ones in the world. The one to kick that off is going to be for Requesting Assistance. Flip to Ready Anything on a 0 with a very good +2 mid block is just nuts. It's just way, way, way too good. This card's even better in characters that can snap in momentum. Mr. Compress is one of those. We just do it defensively rather than aggressively, which is still just as fantastic. Next up on the 0 roster is 4 copies of Basic Training. This card is also very, very crazy. A free damage every single turn is super duper strong, especially when we're playing a 0 gravity lift every single turn. Bumping that from 6 to 7 so that the half block deals 4 instead of 3 is very good. You want to build this ASAP, and of course if you have multiples it just gets better and better. If you have 3 of them, you can bump grav lift to another half block threshold, and of course the deadlock just says that sometimes you accidentally build a couple of these and your rival is literally jailed out from deadlock. Our last totally busted 0 diff is triple release. This is just another way that we get to keep ourselves extremely alive. Even when we overextend super hard, if you just keep a release on board, it lets you just nuke all your committed foundations. Everything has essentially -2 speed, and it's just way too good. We only play 3 because I don't really want to see multiples of them. Also, the forward check is not the most attractive thing in the world, but still something super important to get on your board pretty mid-game when you actually start having to survive your rival's hardest attack strings. And that's the whole deck, guys. This deck is an absolute freaking blast to play. If you're a fan of just air charges in general, the air symbol in general, momentum design space in general, if any of those things are appealing to you, you're going to love Mr. Compress. You're going to love Mr. Compress on air. This deck gets to do so many cool things. Having to like memorize all of your momentum and keep tabs on it is like a really cool skill thing. And it's just in general a very showy deck. Like the fact that you can just like be popping off with all these cards for momentum, making like these inevitable like, you know, 9-10 attack turns as a 6 hand size character. It's very cool. It's very showy. When you're like really popping off with the meteor strings and like the random bombs flowing in there, the instant explosive plays, it's just a super duper fun deck to play. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. If you want to give the deck a shot yourself, I do have the UVS Ultra linked in the description and in the pinned comments. I would love some feedback down below via some comments or the like button, and while you're down there, you can also hit the join button to become a channel member and support my work and support the channel even further. You can check out my Patreon for all the different ways you can commission videos directly from me. Maybe we can work on a deck together. Maybe you can pick a character for me to spotlight that you really enjoy and want to show off to the world. There's a ton of different ways that you can cement yourself permanently on the channel, and I would really appreciate if you check that out. I'm going to have it all linked below in the pinned comments and in the description. Once again, if you just made it to the end of this one, I appreciate that in spades. That's all the time I have for today, but I do hope I see you in the next video.